There is nothing of interest here. Rope lying under the table. There is a safe concealed in the sideboard, but there is nothing of interest in it. Fire grip, ash and fragments of paper. Plum's signature identified. Wrench concealed in vase. Tests show traces of Mr. Body's hair on wrench. Fingerprints, Mr. Body, Mrs. White, Mrs. Peacock, and Professor Plum. Gun recently fired. Fingerprints Mr. Green and Colonel Mustard. The cookbook contains a carbon copy of a letter from Professor Plum to Mr. Body, accompanying the prototype synthetic rubies. a billiard cue. Fingerprints, Mr. Body. Lead pipe in drawer. Fingerprints smudged, but identifiable as Mr. Green's, Mr. Body's, and Colonel Mustard's.
A wrench? No, I cannot recall seeing anything like that in the house. You do mean a wrench, an adjustable wrench? Although I suppose it makes little difference if you're hit over the head with it.
I'm sure you've heard from just about everyone that Body had treated me very badly. I invented a formula for synthetic rubies. It would have made me a fortune. But I made the mistake of asking Body to have his business associates check it out. To cut a long story short, Body stole my idea and was going to market those rubies in his own name. I couldn't believe that he could do that to me. But, you know, I wasn't the only person he'd upset. I heard Miss Scarlet in the ballroom. She seemed to be very distraught. There was somebody with her. A man, but I don't know who. And she was really carrying on. I actually think I heard a shot. I'm afraid I decided to mind my own business.
You think the murder took place in the kitchen? But who was the murderer? Which weapon do you think they used? And this is your accusation? You think the murderer was Professor Plum in the kitchen with the wrench? Well done, you've got everything right. You've solved the murder mystery. Now, let's go through it stage by stage. Let's see what happened.
Mr. Body had made a complete fool of Professor Plum. Not only had he lied to him and stolen his ideas for the synthetic rubies, he'd also seen to it that by selling his version of the rubies, the professor would stay poor, while he got very rich indeed. Professor Plum had tried to reason with Mr. Body, but to no avail. Professor Plum was hardly a violent man. He almost passed out when he threw the rubies through the study window, but he knew that he would have to act. Mr. Body was creating havoc in everyone's life. Professor Plum tried to talk to Mrs. White in the dining room. She could have told him about the copy of the letter she was hiding, but she was getting tired of the professor feeling sorry for himself. So Plum wandered off into the hall. That's when he saw Body, and it was enough to turn the good professor violent. He looked for a weapon, but there was nothing to hand. Opening the hall cupboard, he saw what he wanted, a good, heavy wrench. By then, Mr. Body was on his way into the kitchen, no doubt looking for Mrs. White. Mr. Body was standing by the kitchen table when the professor crept up behind him. As he fell, Mr. Body knocked a bottle of milk to the floor, but the professor wasn't worried about spilt milk. He hurried into the lounge and managed to hide the wrench in a large vase. He didn't remember to clean up his fingerprints.
And that is how Mr. Body met his end. Why not come back and try to solve the next murder mystery at Arlington Hall?